one thing I discovered, and I talk about it often, is if you don't love this person first, you're not loving anybody else properly. And that can go anyway, whether, it's your spouse, children. If I'm not, okay with this person, not feeling great about this person, then that's what I'm putting out to the world, and that's what I'm going to get back. So these people who are, hardcore or whatever, they're not expressing the love, to other people, makes you wonder if what's going on inside of here, if it's so important just to make sure that this person is the best person they can be in here before they open their mouth or act. Hello, and welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast, where we are shifting the way women do menopause. I am your host, Lisa R. Triggs, best-selling author, the Menopause Queen, and motivational speaker. And I'm so excited to introduce a special guest that I have today, Miss Kim Sorrelle. She's a very lovely human being who is also a podcaster, surrounds her life working with self-love, and a humanitarian as well. So welcome, Kim. So great to see you.
Yeah, so great to see you again. I feel like we're old friends getting together, so I love that.
Yes, we are. And yeah, because you live kind of near where I grew up. You live in the Michigan area, but right now you're in Florida doing some exciting stuff, and I'll have to make sure I get those details later. So let's start by just tell us, who is Kim? What is your background? And what brought you to this point to do what you do?
Well, I started my first business when I was 18 years old, so I've always been an entrepreneur. I don't know what it would be like, I guess, to work for somebody else. I haven't done that since high school. And so I started different businesses and sold them throughout the years. And I've got kids and grandkids and, doing the whole life thing. And then a few years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And just 4 months later, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away 6 weeks after that. And I had to figure out life. And so I just had to figure out what life was all about. And my husband was a great guy. We had a great marriage and kind of against all odds, right? When you get married at 18. But it worked for us. I wanted to live a life honoring him. So I wanted to figure out, what does that mean? What do I have to know that I'm doing life right? And I decided that if I knew what love was, if I truly understood love and then lived it, then I would be living life the right way. And so I went on this eat, pray, love journey, mostly in 80, figuring out the true meaning of love. And what I discovered blew my mind and rocked my world, and now dictates what I do every day.
It's amazing when we don't realize how spoiled we are, right? Until you go somewhere that isn't like where we live, no power, indoor plumbing, they have to figure out where each meal is coming from, all that kind of stuff, right? It really kind of puts life and things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It changes everything, I think. I think everybody in the world should go and travel and see how other people in the world live, and especially to developing nations. Because when I hear people complain, it's like, holy cow, get on a plane and go spread your wings a little bit, go see some more of the world, and your complaints will go away quickly.
I totally agree. And sometimes you got to put yourself outside of your comfort zone too. You know what I mean? Like, you spoke about, having to speak on or sleep on the floor and things like that, And I think that two things can happen. You appreciate what you have, your life back home more as well, right? But you also just feel so much for these people living in this condition, in this, country. And it doesn't surprise you sometimes too that there are still countries that are still developing in that way in this day and age, so to speak. But it is, there are.
It's interesting, and there's a lot of factors that go into it, why it is the way it is. And it's not lack of funds in the world. It's not lack of people in the world. It's lack of motivation, perhaps. Sometimes accumulating wealth, which I don't know. I certainly worked hard for what I have. I don't have anything against people making money and working out, making money, like, whatever. But I think there's a responsibility that to whom much is given, much is required. And if everybody could do something to help somebody, we'd live in a different world.
Totally agree. And sometimes it's just a small gesture to help somebody else, even if it's, buying somebody their coffee or holding the door, whatever. But going the extra mile to actually go visit another country that needs is so inspirational. I think it's amazing that you have done that. So when you came home, where did life take you?
Well, I ended up actually spending at least part of the month of every single month for the next several years in Haiti. When I decided to do this journey, I was going to become the part-time bookkeeper for an organization that my dad and I had started 10 years before. Because I didn't know, I had people running my companies. I didn't have to go back there. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But when I was finally healthy enough to go back to work, that's what I was going to do. And it was going to start January 1 of that year. And so I started as part-time bookkeeper. And 12 days later, there was an earthquake in Haiti that killed 200,000 people. So within 2 weeks, I was in Haiti and then was in Haiti for most of the next several years. It's certainly where my heart is in service anywhere in the world, wherever I go, other places as well. So that's mainly what I do these days is I live to serve.
I love that because, my mission is too, as you know, right? To be able to help others to realize the things that I have that they might not have. It took me a long time to clue in, so to speak, of some things. And then when I did, then it kind of said, I thought, you know what? This is kind of basic stuff. And why more women doing this? They're just going through their day to day and just accepting life as it is, that this is just the way it is, or looking for something outside, whether it's medication, whatever. And that's all well and good. But, there's the personal journey too, where you can just improve your life, making, shift perspective or, different things like that.
Right. Absolutely. I know. I love what you do because you don't hear people talk fondly of menopause at all. It's usually this downer, this bummer. And why do we have to go through it? Don't women go through enough? We already have to bear the children, whatever, and the monthly visitor, whatever. But you put this whole different slant on it and it's educational, motivational, inspirational. It's all the things and lets women go through that many years of life. It's quite a period of life between perimenopause and menopause and go through that entirely differently than they thought they were going to approach it is amazing. So I love what you do.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. That means so much. Yeah, I just, like you, did something I felt called to do, write the book and then continue on and now this and all that. But tell me, I know you've written a book or more than one book. So was that about your experiences in Hades? What was the thought process behind your first book anyway?
Yeah, so my first book is called Cry Until You Laugh. I started writing when I was diagnosed with cancer. And I went to a bookstore and I thought, well, there will be a book that will tell me what I need to do and give me all my answers of the millions of questions that I have. And everything was either depressing or real medical. And I'm like, well, what does it feel like? And are there choices you have to make? What is it about? And so I started writing kind of as a way to keep family and friends up to date. It was before Facebook. It was I was sending out emails and just kind of writing when I felt like writing. And before I knew it, 5,000 people were reading the emails that I was sending. And so I just continued to write. I wrote for a little over a year. And so I was writing when my husband was diagnosed and writing when my husband passed away and writing when I'm figuring out life. And that is cry until you laugh because I think that's what you need to do is cry. Absolutely. My word. But it's okay to laugh again.
I'm getting a little choked up actually as you're talking because I'm picturing the 6 weeks kind of thing, what that must have been like to have your own diagnosis and then his. Something similar happened with my father and my mother-in-law at the same time. Diagnosis to gone in 2 months. I feel what that must have been like. So I think that you're so brave. And I think that it's so beautiful that you decide to bring something good out of it and share the story and learn to laugh again.
Yeah. Well, I think, sometimes people need permission. I've known people who feel like they're being dishonoring if they laugh again, if they live a life of joy. Like, then you must not be thinking about the person that you lost as much, or you must not have loved them as much, or, the stories that we can tell ourselves. And the reality is I think the best way to honor somebody is to live fully, completely, and live with joy and love and peace and laughter. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. Something just come in mind where you were saying that about that permission to be able to go on and live. It made me think of back in the day, 1800s or something. You actually, as particularly a woman, had to mourn for a certain amount of time. Well, the men did anyway. They wore the black bands, and even they, you had to mourn for what was it, a year or something like that, before. That seems kind of wild, but there was, amount of time put on that, but not an individual thing when you're absolutely right. The person that's gone would want you to live your life and be happy again, for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting though, because it's such a cultural thing. There's culture tied to it. And so different places around the world, you put a black veil on your home and you have to dress in black for however long you have to dress in black and, don't get caught laughing or smiling, for that period of time. But then when that period of time is done, you're done. Go put the flowers back on or, go wear pink again.
Especially if you had children or whatever, if you're a woman, if you're a widower, right? You had to find a new husband, and then vice versa. Widower, a man, right? He needed a woman to take care of his kids.
Yeah, so true.
After that book.
Yeah, Love is my second book, and it's the journey. I dedicated a year, or I decided I was gonna dedicate a year to figuring out the true meaning of love. And I took 2,000-year-old poem, hear it all the weddings, love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, etc. And I decided I would take one word or phrase a month and figure out, well, what is love that is patient? What is love that is kind? And I was in Haiti the majority of the time that I was working on it. So the book is everything that I discovered, which truly every single month was an adventure and not what I thought it was going to be. I thought, I know what kind is, you're kind, I'm kind. We say kind things, but you put love is or love is not in front of any word or phrase and it changes the meaning entirely. It took me to the end of every month to figure out what does that really mean? What is love that is patient? What is love that keeps no record of wrongs? What do those things mean? And so the book is that it's all the things that I figured out about love and the stories, the things that happened. I was chased by a motorcycle gang, slept outside, tarantulas and snakes, I just a lot of different things happened. And so it's the stories that led to the discoveries about love.
How long ago was that? What year did the books come out?
Yeah, well, my first book came out more than 10 years ago, and then, it's just been a couple years that Love Is has been out.
That's awesome. And for anybody listening, if this strikes a chord with you, definitely, go to kimsorrelle.com and check all this out, and you can find everything about her there. Let's move on to the podcast. When did that start? Because I know that's how I initially met you, through Author Success, actually, right? How did all that come about?
Well, I started guesting on other people's podcasts, when my book came out to talk about it for publicity, basically, right? Spread the word. And I was on somebody's podcast and they liked me apparently, asked me if I would co-host a podcast with them. And so I started out by co-hosting a podcast and then started my own. That's how it came about, I guess. I love meeting people. I love hearing people's stories. I love the inspiration, the motivation. I love it when people go through stuff and then use what they've gone through to help other people. I think that's a beautiful thing. And so that's what my podcast is about. And I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, I loved being on it, and I love the mission behind it and the purpose and your purpose, and that it's just lovely, just lovely. You're just lovely human being.
Same back at you. It was so fun. The episode we did together, I had such a good time. And you just have so much to offer. So I so appreciate you being on my show. That was awesome.
Thank you, and I appreciate you returning the favor and coming on for here as well. Let's dig a little deeper for a minute, on kind of the self or the love journey. I know your books and everything, came out of that, but can you even put into words what it's like to witness other people and what kind of goes on in here in your heart, if you will, the kind of things that go through your mind that kind of says to yourself, you know what, this is where I'm meant to be, even if it's for this amount of time or whatever. This is where I'm called to make a difference.
Well, it's interesting, right? I mean, I think one thing I discovered is service is the greatest healer of grief. And I've never heard I've never read that in a book. I've never heard anybody talk about that, but it's absolutely true. When you can get outside yourself and help other people, there's healing in that. And you can't outgive. Like it's just the way the universe is designed. I remember the very first time I ever went to a developing nation. My kids were young and we decided we were going to do Christmas different one year. And we went to the Dominican Republic. They had a hurricane that went right over Santo Domingo, did tons of destruction. And so we went down to go help pass out relief items and whatever. And I thought, well, I'm going to help these people. My kids, we're going as a family, we're going to help these people. And what I walked away with was so much bigger and greater than anything I could leave behind. So what it does for you internally to serve is just so much bigger than what you can give. Like you just kind of can't outgive.
I know what you mean. And it is hard to articulate, to put that feeling into words when you just know that this is where you're supposed to be at that time in, moment in time. And it's such a selfless thing to do as well, you know, and not everybody can do that. I really commend you for even in your kids, bringing your kids. How old were they at the time? Like teenagers, or were they?
My oldest was 13 or something, and my youngest would have been 4.
So they were young.
They were young, and I'll tell you, to this day, they have a heart for people. They've got a heart to help where they can help.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Being that young and experience it, that would make them appreciate, or have a totally different perspective, outlook, and on their life back here.
One thing too is sometimes people can let pity get involved and, oh, these poor people, these poor people. Well, you don't know what you don't know, so you don't know what you don't have necessarily.
Yeah, they don't need any different. Yeah.
Right, but everybody has the same basic needs. We all need a roof over our head. We all need clothing. We all need food every day. We all need water that doesn't make us sick. And so, helping people get the things that they need, I think is always important, but without pity. I mean, people are people all over the world, and people are proud of where they live, wherever they live. And so it's not a matter of, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for these people. It's just that, holy cow, they don't have clean water. Their water keeps them away from school and work because it makes them ill. So how can we get them clean water, and things just to solve issues that are their issues. I work with people in their own countries that understand the language and the culture and the true need, instead of going in and saying, I know what you need. If we just did this and this, all your problems would go away. Instead it's like, you know what you need. You know what's first on the list and what's important. And
Like they probably know they need to boil the water.
sometimes, but you have a need of things to be able to boil the water. So you might not have the equipment that it takes, or the charcoal or the wood, or, whatever you're going to burn to boil the water. So, even with that, and even in boiling water, that doesn't kill everything.
It's funny how I'm just sitting here thinking about it too, that we in North America assume that everybody needs to live like we do. You know what I mean? Like they should have, plumbing and water. Like how come they, still live like that? Why haven't they, evolved, and all this kind of stuff? You can tell me more from your own experience, but like you just said an important thing. It's like you don't know what you don't know. They don't know any different because they're there, we're here. Right? There's oceans between us. It's no wonder that I mean, I don't even know, like, who was the first person that ever, you know, went and said, "I wanna help these people," like, discovered that, you know what I mean? And who's to say that initially that they even want your help, right? There might be that situation too, like, "This is our life, this is the way and we don't need you coming in and bringing, all this." Because there are people that choose to live a certain way as well. Like, where I live right now is in the country, and there's a large Mennonite and that community, so we see the horse and buggies still, and things like that. And we feel bad for them when, like, if it's raining or we're like, "Oh my gosh," we I feel so bad. They're out in the element, they're just, and the poor horses, and all that kind of stuff. But to them, that's what they choose. They choose to live their life in that simplicity, in the things that were before, because there are people who believe that, the technologies of today are not that great, not the way God wanted it, that kind of thing.
What you're saying is so valid and so true. Sometimes people have no choice because it's the hand they're dealt, it's where they are. There's no way out. I've been to lots of slums in lots of countries, and probably there's nobody who really wants to live in a slum. That life is a tough life, and it'd be great to get out of that life. But there are people that do choose to live, like the Amish, the Mennonites, and honestly, I admire that. It's like they wear their faith on their sleeve, that what they preach, they walk, they live. And I say go them, if that's what you choose to do, go you. And it is a simpler life. We complicate life a little bit. So, a simpler life isn't such a bad thing.
Yeah, it just brought something else to mind too, and I was thinking, because I've been to, Mexico, Dominican, many times, but on trips, like going to all inclusives. And here we are, North Americans, going to these not necessarily third world, but, you know, for their beautiful beaches, and we go there and we think that's paradise. And for them it's just everyday life. They go fishing, whatever, and they live amongst this clear water and these beautiful beaches and all that kind of stuff. And we go there to try and get that too. Isn't it kind of funny?
It is. It's interesting. When you go though and you're at a resort and all inclusive, you tend to stay right there. You don't wander off very much, but it can be a whole different trip if you take a day and get in a car and drive a mile away from the ocean and see how a lot of the country is living. Puts things into perspective as well.
Absolutely. I feel it, all the time. And I feel grateful, you know what I mean? It makes me feel even more grateful, so to speak, but I don't want to sound that, have that sound in a kind of mean, snotty kind of way, or better than anybody else kind of thing. It's not. It's just that while I appreciate the beauty that's there, I am grateful, that I do have running water and electricity and that kind of thing, that I live where I live kind of thing. So it's, again, a matter of perspective, right?
Wow, it's so true. Yeah.
So what else is going on with Kim these days?
Well, I just spoke at the United Nations. The United Nations really is about peace in the world. They have a goal. Whatever people think of the United Nations, there are some really good things about the United Nations. They've had this 2030 goal of world peace, and they've made strides. There's things that they've done to try to create world peace. And so it's something that hopefully we'll realize in our lifetime. Like that would be wonderful. And the help that the UN gives, there's a lot of things that they do that are really good, but peace is a big thing. And I went and I spoke about love, because love, I think, is the quickest way to peace. We tend to think of love as a romantic thing, or conditional. If you love me, I'll love you back. Or, we put a wall around love, where actually love is not that. Love is not transactional. Love is not conditional. Love is just walking. Love is who you are. It's not an emotion. It's not like fear. You watch a scary movie and you go to bed that night and you hear every creak and every bump and every bang, right? But then the next night you're not so scared. And because it's fear, it's an emotion. It comes and it goes. But love doesn't ever come and go. Love is walking, talking, living, breathing. It's truly who you are. And so how you show up is kind of a representation of how you love. And so we lost that somehow, like as a principle of governance, even like we took love out of businesses and love out of government. And love was never meant to be uh, put in a box. You don't hang it up in the closet when you get home from work, and you don't put it in the drawer at work. It's with you always. It's part of who you are. So it should be a part of how you lead, how you govern, how you work, how you parent, how you neighbor, how you anything.
I think you're so right. The world would be such a different place if we could only realize that, you know, and people work together towards that, because they've, like you said, governments and all that. It's politics now. It's, greed, money, so different. Religion. Those are, and everybody's kind of out for themselves, I'm so proud of you for doing that and going, like, how does one even go do that?
Yeah, no, I knew somebody who threw my name in the hat, basically or said, "Hey, you should have Kim Sorrelle come." And so, yeah, it was just through knowing somebody who knew somebody, I guess, and just think it's just so vital and so important. You talking about religion and politics and all the things. And, there's families that have been separated over who they voted for in November. But to me, you can belong to a club. If you're a Democrat, Republican, who cares? It's not who you are. And somehow we've made those labels. We've made it who we are or who we assume somebody is. And it's not. It's the label we put on somebody. But people are people. You're Lisa and I'm Kim. I mean, it should be that simple. And then if you claim something, you're part of a group, that's great. But that's a label and that's something you're a part of. That's not who you are. But love is who you are.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And this might be controversial or whatever, but I think that some people do take it too seriously. You know what I mean? Like their politics or their views or whatever. And, that's unfortunate that those are the ones that end up, causing trouble or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're so passionate about that for one reason or another that it causes divides.
It does cause divide. Well, labels always do. I mean, labels of any kind, right? I mean, religious labels cause division. Ethnic labels cause division.
Do you think we do it to ourselves though sometimes? Like the people who are so, hardcore with certain beliefs or whatever, right? Whether it is religion, politics, whatever, right? But we're so focused on that and how I think a lot of times it's selfish. It's how we're going to benefit from that. I'm going to benefit in some way from me thinking, believing, whatever, acting, right? Whereas if we think about it differently, like we're saying, and put the benefit of others at the center of it instead of yourself, I think it'd be a totally different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too, it's like you're part of something. People want to belong.
And you're part of something bigger than yourself, right? It's bigger than yourself. It's not a note, number one, right?
Yeah, which brings us back to one thing that is so important to you is self-love. Because if you don't have that, if you don't understand what love is, and then you don't have love for yourself, you're critical of yourself or you think it's selfish to love yourself or for whatever reason, and you want to belong to something, I think that's what gets people in trouble because everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants a community. Everybody wants people that love them and they can love back. And that's normal, human. But if you start from a place where you do love yourself, then it's just a club. When you start from a place of understanding love, right? Then it's just something you belong to.
Absolutely, because you're absolutely right. And then that's part of my myth because one thing I discovered and I talk about often is if you don't love this person first, you're not loving anybody else properly. You know what I mean? And that can go anyway, whether, it's your spouse, children, and this is all from my personal experience. Of course, this is something that I've learned and lived and, walk every day that if I'm not, okay with this person, not feeling great about this person, then that's what I'm putting out to the world and that's what I'm going to get back. So these people who are, hardcore, whatever, they're not expressing the love to other people makes you wonder if what's going on inside of here, if that's, if there's something, missing or they haven't tapped into. I don't want to say disconnected. I don't want to, put labels on other people, but it's so important just to make sure that this person is the best person they can be in here before they open their mouth or act or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so true. You look at the magazines or the movie stars or the whatever, and we think that there's a certain physical ideal. And then we meet people, we think there's a certain mental ideal or a certain emotional ideal. And it's like, your ideal is what you see in the mirror.
You're absolutely right. How long has it taken even for like plus size models or you know what I mean? Like they were always, and that's a societal thing, right? Society is dictating, what we wear, how we look, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, let's stop the truck. Let's stop the truck. You know what? No, I need to, worry about it. Doesn't matter what society thinks, but we tend to be followers, right? Instead of taking it, standing our own ground and forming our own beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And that's one thing that I'm pretty proud of myself that I've done, because otherwise I wouldn't be here talking to you doing what I'm doing and wearing this. I would not be wearing this tiara. There has been many days I have thought, should I put it aside? Is it too gimmicky? Is it too, because I'm even something I'm speaking at, they're doing promotional photos. Somebody edited my photo, put me in a blue blazer with a white top, took my tiara off, took my pink off, and I had to email them and say, "I'm sorry, but this is my brand, this is who I am, and this is how I'm showing up to this event." I had to go step back a moment though, because at first I was kinda upset about it. I'm like, "Who are they?" Like, they didn't ask my permission if they could do this, first of all, alter me, right? And I'm like, "Okay, but did they need it?" I don't know, whatever. But then I had to just say, "You know what? It could be just somebody not knowing." Right? They're a graphic designer, whatever, they don't know. So when I asked, I said, "Could we change that back?" Right? Because this is how it's showing up. This is my brand. But I did second guess it for a minute and thought, should I just leave it? Should I just go for it? Is this a message saying, but I thought, no, no, you know, this is what differentiates me. This is what makes me stand out. This is what makes me the trailblazer that, because the space ended up being more crowded than I thought it was when my book came out and I got into this. I thought, oh, how many people are going to, put out a book? Well, it turns out a lot more than I thought, and from every angle, So how am I going to differentiate myself, make myself stand out? So this is the way I chose, but in conjunction with the name of my book kind of thing, right? So my point in saying that is that even I have, wondered, should I give this up? But it's like, no, this is who I am. I put this on and I'm sticking to it, you know?
And I love it. Everybody should be able to be that. Like, if we just kind of let each other be who they believe they're created to be. I want the grace from people to live how I believe I'm supposed to believe what I believe, to be who I believe I'm created to be. And so if I want that for myself, I need to extend it to everybody else. And so I think if we just let people be, so often um, we stay away from people because they don't believe the way you do, or they don't look the way you do, or they don't talk the way you do, or whatever. And it's like, well, people are people all over the world. Nobody better than another, nobody less than another. People are people. And the sooner you understand that anybody understands it, the sooner you're open to having great conversations with people you may never have talked to before, and whatever, live and let live.
Yes. I think Dr. Mel Robbins has it, her the let them. As soon as I heard that, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. Because sometimes there are moments, of weakness when we get caught up in the societal things, and I have to sit back, and then I read something or it's like, you know what? No, their opinion doesn't matter, right? Their opinion doesn't matter. What I think, matters. And the whole let that, like, you do you, right? That's my thing. You do you, I'll do me. It doesn't mean that we can't coincide,
Right. Exactly.
because that's the beauty about it. If we're putting the love out there, if we're, living with love and being love and thinking, what is it? Think, speak, act with love, the world would be such a we would be more kind, we would be more generous, we'd be more accepting, we would be just not as judgmental, of people being different, but we get, it's all society's fault.
Whoever society is, it's their fault.
I do think though, if we want to go way back, that governance and all that kind of stuff, we as human beings need some kind of, I don't want to call it rules, but or government guidelines or something as human beings to kind of, whether it's the 10 commandments, whether, religion or politics or whatever, some kind of or laws, even things to live by, because they're, unfortunately, we could be an unruly society then. So Kim and I are telling everybody, just be nice, love, love, love.
And don't judge. Love and don't judge, right?
This conversation is, I love where it's going though, because we're just talking, the basis of it is the love, like with both of us, both of our missions and that kind of thing. So what's next for Kim? What are we doing? I know you do a whole bunch of things, right? The podcast, book, speaking, obviously the humanitarian. Is there some coaching that you're doing?
I do coaching. I don't actively go after clients. People just come to me. So when people come to me, if they want to come to me and it's somebody that I believe I can work with and help out, then I do. So I do some of that. But mostly I'm living the life. Like I just think that every day should be enjoyed. Everything you do, like, the things that I don't like to do, I don't do. The things that I love to do, I do. And so, enjoy what you're doing. You're gonna be so much better at it.
Because you never know, too, having been through what you've been through, with your husband and then even your own diagnosis, your mortality kind of steps in when you're going through that. And it's like, you want to make the most of life. It changes you, right? It changes you from the inside out. And many people say that, who've kind of experienced what you used to. It really does change you. You really appreciate life in general so much more. It could be anybody, you know? Anybody could have this happen to at any point in time, right?
Yeah, there's certain things that don't discriminate at all, and cancer is one of them. And doesn't age discriminate or race discriminate or gender discriminate, like whatever. It can kind of come into anybody's life at any time. And so appreciating health is a big one, right? Being healthy and trying to be healthy. And, I think of it sometimes like when you've had the flu and you just feel terrible, like, or if you've had COVID and you just feel terrible. Every time I have gone through that, I just think, I cannot wait to feel good again. I can't wait to feel good again. And then finally you feel good again, and then it's kinda easy to take it for granted because you feel good and you forget about the feeling bad until you feel bad again. But to really appreciate our health every day, I appreciate my health every day for sure.
This has been a beautiful discussion that went all kinds of different ways, but you know what? That's good. That's good. I love it. Both of us, at the core of everything that we talk and speak and live, the core of it all, or at the root, at the core, however we want to, say it, is the love. And whether it's all encompassing, I think too, the love you have for yourself, love have you others, your life. And I think that gratitude goes a lot with it as well, like being grateful.
100%. Yeah, yeah. Gratitude changes everything. If you truly love, it's super easy to be grateful. And so when you understand that, but meanwhile, every day, like, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like right now I'm sitting on the floor in one of the bedrooms on the floor because it's quiet in here and I have some light and I'm on the carpet and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so grateful for whoever invented carpet. We just have so much to be grateful for. And, so even it's just a good practice just to, at the end of the day, name 5 things you're grateful for, or just make it a practice, gratitude a practice.
And it's funny how some people don't think of it in that way, that they have thousands of things that are around them and they go throughout their day that they could be grateful for. But we don't think of, and sometimes it's physical things, a lot of times it might be physical things, like heat and water, things like that. Like, what we would consider basic necessities in, North American world. But you know what? Be grateful for your health, the fact that you woke up this morning and had breath, that there's a sun in the sky, to trees around you that are providing you oxygen to breathe, all that kind of things. Nature is a wonderful thing, right? So many people find peace in nature, or, I've heard many people say that they find nature, it's like their church. Or they're not religious as far as going to, the building and the rituals and all that kind of stuff, but out in nature, you know, and things like that. And the peace and the calm and hearing the birds and all, that's their church. That's how they rejuvenate, and they're grateful for that.
Yeah, and there is something special about just being outside.
Yeah, I guess we can end it there with reminding people that there's lots to be grateful for. And I'm grateful for you for coming and talking with me today. So I will sign it off here. And thank you again so much. This has been such a wonderful and even eye-opening conversation. So thank you again for joining me.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And so great to be with you again. So thank you so much.
So thank you for joining me for the Self-Love Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Lisa R. Triggs, best-selling author, aka the Menopause Queen. And as always, please remember, self-love first.